All aboard! The Locomotive Express, a podcast series dedicated to local economic development here in eastern Kentucky. The Locomotive Express is a product of the Eastern Kentucky Locomotive Alliance. The Locomotive Alliance is made possible by generous funding provided by the Mary Reynolds Babcock Foundation and support from the University of Kentucky Appalachian Center, the University of Kentucky Community and Economic Development Initiative in Kentucky, the Estill Development Alliance, and the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies. This podcast, along with other resources, are archived and made available at whatsyourlocalmotive.com. Again, that's www.whatsyourlocalmotive.com. Well, hello, I'm your host, Shane Barton, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Locomotive Express, a production of the Eastern Kentucky Locomotive Alliance. Each episode will address a different topic related to community or economic development in Eastern Kentucky, Appalachia, or rural America. Each episode, you'll hear from and be enriched by comments provided by practitioners, researchers, activists, thought leaders, and experts in our subject of the day. Our episodes will wrap up with a spotlight feature called the Network Focus, where we'll hear from a local business member as they discuss what it means for them to be a local business in Eastern Kentucky. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back after this short break. Hello and welcome back. I'm your host, Shane Barton, and this is the first episode of the Locomotive Express. Today's topic is really quite basic. We're going to talk about why local, why now, and why is it important. I recently had an opportunity to sit down with Michael Shuman, a local economy pioneer, and discuss these particular subjects with him. So what you're going to hear today are excerpts from a conversation that we recently had. Now, if you're not familiar with Michael Shuman, let me tell you a little bit about him. Like I've mentioned, he is a local economy pioneer. He's a thought leader on this. He's an economist, an entrepreneur, an author, and an attorney. He holds a JD from Stanford Law School. Michael's authored, co-authored, or edited 7 books, including Going Local, Creating Self-Reliant Communities in the Global Age, The Small Mart Revolution, How Local Businesses Are Beating the Global Competition, and his most recent book is titled Local Dollars, Local Cents. In recent years, Michael has led community-based economic development efforts in Hudson Valley, New York, Katahdin region of Maine, Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, Carbondale, Colorado, and served as a senior editor for the recently published Encyclopedia of Community. He has given an average of more than one invited talk per week for 25 years throughout the United States, and it's with great pleasure that I welcome Michael Shuman to the episode. Recently, I attended a local farm conference in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, and there I had an opportunity to sit down with Michael Shuman and talk about local economies and investment. And today I want to share with you some of the excerpts from that conversation. I asked him to talk about why local is important, why it makes sense, why we should care, and why the movement is taking off.
Well, I think the explanation is partially economic and then partially a lot of other things. But I think the economics of local are the dominant reason why people are embracing it. We know that local businesses are the most important creators of jobs in our economy. So therefore, everything we can do to support local businesses is a way of addressing our current employment crisis. We also know that local businesses, because they spend more of their money locally, they also pump up other parts of the economy, income, wealth, tax collections, charitable contributions, And so local businesses also can address, issues of sort of a lagging economy. I mean, we've been talking for years in this country about stimulus, and unfortunately, stimulus is also often seen as a generic, gee, if government spends $1, we will get some kind of stimulus. Actually, what local businesses offer is probably a more powerful kind of stimulus for a lower price tag than most government stimulus packages offer. I think outside the economy, local businesses are linked with a lot of other things that people are seeking. For environmentalists that are seeking low carbon footprints, low pollution, walkable communities, small businesses offer the possibility of creating compact communities where businesses and home-based businesses and residences and schools are all in close proximity, which pulls people out of cars. Local production of local goods has a smaller carbon footprint than global production and shipping those goods, say, 10,000 miles from China. There is a public health literature that's beginning to show that local business communities have better indicators of public health. One reason for that is that local food tends to be associated with fresher, less processed, more nutritious kinds of food than the processed food that people buy at a long distance, the Twinkies of life. There's a sociology literature that shows that local businesses are linked with social equality, less civil strife, even greater degrees of social happiness. And there's a political science literature that shows that local businesses tend to be linked with greater degrees of political participation, including volunteership. So it's really a very, very long list of benefits that come from local small businesses. And really, to me, the more interesting question is, given that long list, why does economic development systematically favor non-local, non-small businesses? Because they are the least likely to generate economic development.
Well, Michael, that is a very tough question that I hope we can address in future Locomotive Express podcast. But one question that I have for you, given you referenced local production of local goods, how do you respond to the critique that local economic development and local first campaigns or movements to support local businesses are in competition with the global market, and somehow prevent local businesses from participating in the global market? I think now we all understand that we are in a globalizing world and have to compete, but how do you address that?
It's getting every community on the planet to engage in the global economy from a position of strength rather than from a position of vulnerability. How do you take an individual or a community in a world of many billions of people and make them powerful actors? And I think that what local community development does is it's often criticized and I think burlesqued as encouragement for communities to withdraw from the world. But in fact, it's just the opposite. What it's saying is that before you play in the global economy, you strengthen yourself up. I mean, think of a strong local economy as a trampoline. And you get, as you get your local economy in working order, you are able to bounce higher and higher. And once you are really good at that local trampoline bouncing, you can bounce into the rest of the world and the world economy from a position of strength rather than weakness.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for that explanation. I think that really helps myself and hopefully our listeners as well understand that supporting local isn't essentially a competitiveness against participating in the global market, but it's really about preparing communities to participate in the global market. And again, thank you for your comments. We'll be right back after this short break, and when we return, we'll get a chance to hear from Michael Shuman as he tells us what his local motive is. Well, Michael, you know that we are the Eastern Kentucky Locomotive Alliance, and again, I want to thank you for sitting down and talking with us. But we ask all of our contributors, and this is something that we feel very strongly about, and you'll see it reflected in our website, www.whatsyourlocomotive.com. But I would like to ask you, for all of our listeners to hear, Michael, what is your local motive?
I think my local motive, and this is intensely personal, is to find community. Bill McKibben, who's a great environmental writer, argues that the data suggest that America's happiness peaked in 1956 and has been going steadily downhill ever since. And he argues that there's some data that suggests this, that one reason is that when we go out into the public, whether it's the market or for city council meetings, we just don't have as many social interactions, and it's those social interactions that are responsible for our happiness. Now, 1956 is an interesting year because that is the year I was born.
Well, hello and welcome back to the show. This is part of the broadcast where we get to introduce you to a member of the Eastern Kentucky Locomotive Alliance. And today I want to introduce you to Sharon Snowden. Sharon owns Sharon's on Main Street in Ravenna and has been in the business for a long time, and I'll let her describe exactly what her business is. But she is located at 718 Main Street, Ravenna, Kentucky, 40472, and her phone number is 606-723-6779. And without further ado, let's go ahead and turn this over to Sharon for the Network Focus.
I'm Sharon Snowden, and I'm Sharon's on Main Street in Ravenna. I've been a makeup artist for 32, 33 years. And I have worked in Dallas, Texas as a corrective makeup artist. I owned a Merrill Norman cosmetic studio in Winchester for about 14 years. And I've been at my current location for 7 years. The biggest challenge that I personally face in having a business in a small community is the number of clients who are available in this area and their ability to drive just a few miles to Lexington or Richmond and shop for a similar product as to what they can find in my studio. I think that once they do that, they usually come back if they actually know that I'm here. Estill County has been really good to me. People have been really loyal. They continue to come back time after time. They have advertised for me. They brought family members in when they've come from out of town to visit. They have, and those people have continued to order, and I can send product to them. And this particular store was the Ravenna drugstore, so a lot of people come in just to visit because they loved coming to do business here many years ago. The store itself has been here for almost 100 years. So I have really enjoyed the stories that they have to share with me, and they've enjoyed the product that they have bought from me. So it's really enjoyable, and the people have been really kind to me here. So it's been a good experience so far. All my products are made in the United States, and they are grouped together to personally benefit people with their skin and their makeup. And I also have been very fortunate that I can keep my pricing reasonable. The economy is such that most people don't have a lot of extra money to spend on anything. If people don't shop local. And then one day they decide, oh, there's something that they need quickly. They're not going to be able to get it because they have allowed the local businesses to go out of business because that they were not there purchasing from them.
Well, thank you so much. This has been the first episode of the Eastern Kentucky Locomotive Alliance's Locomotive Express, and I'm your host, Shane Barton, here to say thanks and see you later. I would like to remind you, if you're interested in finding more information or other podcasts, you can always check us out on the web at www.whatsyourlocomotive.com, and that's Watts with an apostrophe S, yourlocomotive.com. You can also find us on Facebook at EK Locomotive, or on Twitter at EK Locomotive as well. Again, I'm your host, Shane Barton. Until next time, we'll see you later.